Hello everybody, it is Shio, and I am reporting to you live from right where we started the game. Because that's right, it is a part 2 to the Genshin Impact Nostalgic Locations video from a couple weeks ago. I really did not expect that video to get as much love as it did, so thank you so much. It is truly like almost incomprehensible, but I thought there were so many great comments in that video talking about your guys' favorite, most nostalgic places in the game, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to check them out in your video. This will be a sort of commenter edition of the last one. So yeah, thank you so much for leaving those comments and giving me suggestions. I'm really excited to go take a look at your guys' most nostalgic Genshin locations. And starting off, we're going to go to the island right across the ocean. Before we do that, do y'all remember starting the game here so long ago? Do you remember the little chest that was on that rock? I bet so many of us died trying to swim over to that chest because we had barely any stamina. But I just think for a second, let's appreciate the very beginning of the game. We're just going to sit here and we're going to just take in the moment, the sounds. It's going to be nice.
Boom, booms, and eyes.
And I'm making my way to this unmapped island with Farina by walking on water, but I'm sure many of us originally got to this island using either Kaya or trying to glide over with Amber or Venti from that cliff right there. Maybe you barely made it, maybe you had to use stamina food, maybe you had to swim some of the rest of the way there. There was definitely a lot of people talking about how much they remember getting over to this island for the very first time. And now we're here taking what is probably my first steps on this island since maybe October of 2020. It has been that long, and it's super foggy. We can't even see the rest of Teyvat right now. I mean, just look at this place. It is so atmospheric, and it is still to this day one of the most mysterious places in the game. And I'm sure that the lore people come back to here all the time just to really appreciate that fact. I can totally understand why this is one of people's most beloved areas, especially early game areas. This place is so nostalgic. Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, there was a lot more people nostalgic for Dragonspine than I had anticipated. And I think that's really interesting because for a lot of players, Dragonspine represents a pretty significant difficulty curve in this game really early on. Dragonspine can be really challenging if you're brand new to the game and are coming into it a little too early than anticipated. And even though it is genuinely so pretty, it is also very hostile, and I think it may be that exactly that makes people so nostalgic for it. I wonder if that, overcoming of that initial difficulty and that hardship is what really makes this place stand out to a lot of people, because once you finish Dragonspine for the first time, you really genuinely feel like you've conquered something, because it is so difficult so early. One of the places that I'm particularly nostalgic for is this room right here. I don't know how many of you remember, but in this room when you first get here, there is a snow-tombed star silver, which is a physical damage bonus weapon. There is just one of them here. It then becomes a weapon that you can craft whenever you want. But even to this day, I believe it's one of the only places in the game that you can actually find a weapon, like, in the overworld, like, fully modeled. I remember originally seeing this weapon, seeing that it was blue and covered in ice, and being so excited, because back in the day I used to be a Chongyun main, and I was like, oh, a perfect weapon for my Chongyun. Little did I know, the weapon is actually terrible on Chongyun, but hey, I didn't know better back then. Even though I don't think that many people forgot about this place, at least I hope you didn't, I saw a lot of comments from people saying that they were super nostalgic for Windrise. And I mean, can you really blame people? Look at this. Look at this giant tree. Oh my gosh. I remember seeing Windrise for the first time and being genuinely amazed. This is probably one of the largest scale things in the game during the 1.0 content. Like, there's not that many singular objects in the game that are at the same scale as the giant tree at Windrise. And I think this is particularly nostalgic for people because this is obviously where we had our last conversation with Venti before leaving for Liyue. And I think for a lot of people, Mondstadt is still very much the most nostalgic region in the game. And so having our final Mondstadt Archon Quest conversation right here, with the city in the background, under the branches of this giant tree, with Venti, our very first Archon, is just a really special memory for a lot of people, and I definitely am included in that. I mean, this is giving me major flashbacks right now, and I love it. I mean, just look at this. Windrise really is so pretty. Another place that I saw mentioned is the road between Mondstadt and Liyue that leads to Stone Gate. It's this one here on the map, and it is a place that I reckon many of us didn't originally get to Liyue with. Like me, many of you probably crossed this part of the lake and then went over this stretch of land. But this is technically the, maybe not intended, but definitely the canon way of getting from Mondstadt to Liyue, and we can see why, because look at this, it's so gorgeous. I actually remember discovering this little road pretty late into the game. Like, I had already gotten to Liyue and seen most of Liyue when I came back to here and feeling like I had genuinely missed out not coming this way to Liyue. Because it's a really interesting thing they do, where they transition from a lot of the Mondstadt stone and terrain types and architecture into the Liyue rocks, the Liyue buildings, the lights, and eventually here we can see terrain that is much more akin to Liyue than it is to Mondstadt. And that sort of gradual transition that introduces you and sort of prepares you for the nation you're about to go in, possibly for the first time. I think it's something really special and really cool. And as you rise just over this crest, this would be many people's very first introduction to Liyue. And what an introduction it is. Oh my gosh. This is so gorgeous. This is even prettier than I remember it being. This is crazy. I saw so many people who said as well that their most nostalgic place in the game was Wangshu Inn. So shout out to those people. We can see it from here. And man, I remember Wangshu Inn being the thing that gave me the biggest impression when I was first playing Genshin early on in late September. When I saw it for the first time, I was so amazed, and I was like, that was one of the selling points of the game for me. Just wow. And just a little farther ahead, we can see this little gazebo sort of thing, and then just ahead, this bridge. And I don't know how many of y'all knew about Genshin Impact before release, whether you played the closed beta tests or you were just keeping up with the game, but there was a pretty early gameplay trailer for the game, or not even a trailer, I think it was a gameplay showcase, in which someone on the Hoyo team was playing as Shangling, and they crossed over this bridge, and they did this geo puzzle. And for some reason, that is one of the earliest Genshin memories I have. Even though it wasn't the first thing about Genshin that I had seen at the time, it's one of those that just really stuck into my mind. That tiny moment from that larger video, and every time I come back here, I'm reminded of it. And I just think it's so fun that that is the identity of this place to me from so early. That must have been like summer of 2020, right? Like so long ago. Now you guys actually totally got me with this one last video, because Cell Terrai is an area that I didn't even fully realize you could still go back to. I mean, this is truly something that I experienced alongside Zhongli in his first story quest and did not realize you could go back. But wow, this is cool. And I remember so much of this. It's crazy how I didn't even think of this location when making the last video, but literally just coming back here on your guys' suggestions, I remember everything. I remember this so clearly, and I didn't even think about it before. And this, of course, would have been the entrance to the city where Havria ruled over, which is obviously closed because it is a story quest only domain. I kind of wish we could go back to the story quest domains, I really do. But it is cool to know that at least this area is still available. And that's really crazy because this area is actually awesome looking at it. I mean, this is pretty similar in terms of quality to the current underground areas we get now, which is pretty impressive because this was pretty early into the game's life cycle. A couple of you reminded me of a place I am also extremely nostalgic for, which is right here, the peak of Guyun Stone Forest. And I mean, oh my gosh, look at this view. Look at this view, dude. In case you don't remember, this is where Zhongli's first story quest ends. And that quest is still regarded as being one of the better story quests in the game, and was definitely considered the best story quest when it originally came out. I mean, there was people who were really head over heels for this quest, myself included. It's the one with Havria. We were just in the Salterai area. It's the one where we go there. Zhongli is such an important character, both in the game and in the lore, and that quest has such an important impact on people that I think right here, this spot is going to bring back a lot of memories for people because it represents a lot of that initial draw of the game right at launch. When you're still really early, you're still getting to know characters like Zhongli, but you just come across these impressive, awesome stories and just feel so enthralled in the world. Serai Island was one that I saw a lot in the comments as well, some people even citing it as their favorite location in Inazuma. And I can totally get that because this island, the terrain of it, the lighting of it, I mean, right now we're at like sunset, which just makes it even cooler with this awesome orange streak across the sky. It really does have a sense of majesty to it that we don't quite see at this level very often in the game. And it is actually stunning, and that cloud up there is so scary. So scary. But there's one location in Serai in particular that a commenter reminded me about that I totally forgot about, which is crazy because I remember struggling with it so much when I originally was exploring this island. And that is Serai Maru, the ruined shipwreck on the coast of Serai Island. There used to be a puzzle here when you originally get to the island that I still think to this day is one of the most confusing puzzles in the game. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I do remember it taking me like an hour to clear this place, which is pretty crazy. I mean, Inazuma is known for its more difficult puzzles compared to what came before it, but this was really crazy. And the part that maybe is coming back to you now is that you can go inside of this boat, and not just inside of the boat itself, but underneath it there is a massive cave with the other half of the boat in here and a bunch of these Nobushi guys. And man, I did not remember this, and that commenter really did remind me because look, you can see the boat that's somehow like barreled through the stone and has broken in half down here at the bottom of this cave. And there were so many puzzles down here and so many enemies, and this is just crazy, and it's all coming back to me. I remember struggling so much, like I said. You know, this lighting coming down, oh my gosh, this is so cool. How many of you remembered this place? Because this was really a trip down memory lane for me. Originally, I didn't include this in my last video because I felt that most people would probably remember it, but there were so many people that said that this was one of their most nostalgic places that I just had to include it anyway. And that is the little cat shrine on Serai Island. If y'all remember, the first time that you set foot in this sort of half of the island, you start seeing these little cats everywhere, and you're like, aw, kitty, and then you see another one, and eventually they will lead you here. And you come up this little path, and there's such a stunning view. I mean, Inazuma is still such a gorgeous nation, but like, what is this? This is so awesome. And the fact that it's filled with talking cats just makes it so much better in my eyes. I almost feel like I need to issue y'all a formal apology for not including Chasm in the last video, because so many of you were so enthusiastic about the chasm. And don't get me wrong, I love the chasm. It is genuinely one of my favorite areas in the game, especially the underground. But I didn't include it because I didn't think that many people shared my same viewpoint. But apparently, there is a lot of us chasm enjoyers out there. So we're going to do a quick, expedient speed tour of all of the places in the chasm that I and you guys love. First and foremost is the underground ruins with the terrifying purple rocks underneath them. Shout out to Dainsleaf and all of the lore people out there. I know y'all love this place. A lot of y'all seem to love this mushroom so much, and honestly, who am I to say no? It's a giant talking mushroom. I totally get it. But the amount of people that mentioned it I thought was so surprising. I mean, yeah, it's freaking cool. I do not blame you. The next place is the Chasm Nail area with all this crazy cubic, geometric rock formations around it. It has now been, what, 2 years since this released, and we still have not seen another Celestia Nail in either Sumeru or Fontaine, which I think is really crazy. And please, Hoyo, I think that we are due another nail. And finally, this is one that I saw a lot as well. This little green area in the chasm, which was a massive lead up to Sumeru. We can see below it there's elemental totems for Anemo, Geo, and Electro, which is obviously hinting at the 3 nations that we had been in prior to Sumeru. And if you go all the way up there, you get this prompt saying move up. And when you click it, you appear right here at the very beginning of Sumeru. And that's crazy. I want to know, was there anybody who genuinely got to Sumeru for the very first time through that tunnel without having heard about it first online or something? Because if so, man, congrats, you earned that, because that is so subtle. A lot of y'all were nostalgic for Vanarana. This is the city of the Aranaras, and it is absolutely so peaceful, so calm, so serene. I really do love this place. Kaveh might have seemingly been deleted from the game at this point, considering he hasn't had a banner in like over a year, but his most beautiful work of architecture has not. And it is still so pretty, this gorgeous building with this lovely courtyard and gazebo thing nestled in this valley, a waterfall behind it. There's like a river winding around the base. Truly one of the prettiest, calmest places in Teyvat, in my opinion. One place that a few people mentioned actually was the inside of the giant ruin golems in Sumeru. There's a few of these that you can find. This is the one you just saw the name pop up in Devantaka Mountain. This place is so cool. I remember going into this for the first time and being so taken aback, so shocked, and so like pleasantly surprised that this was actually a set piece that we could go in. And they did such a good job doing it because it really feels larger than life. I love the way that they've designed this place. I do also know that this place gives some people a lot of trouble because of the tilted floors. It can be a little disorientating, and I've even heard about people getting sick exploring the inside of these golems, so we won't stay here for too long, but for those of us who don't get sick in here, I really do think it is a very special place to come back to. It seems that my last video really pulled all of us desert enjoyers out of the woodworks, because so many people commented on that video saying that they agreed with me, and the Sumeru Desert is the best area in Genshin to date. And to all of y'all, I just want to say, congratulations for being so big-brained. I love y'all. No, but really, I definitely do think that the Sumeru Desert is one of the most unique and interesting places in the game, and to me, nothing has quite matched the aesthetic of these super grandiose, but also very solemn and almost melancholy feeling ruins that we find deep underneath the desert, with these pockets of light coming through and these little, like, sand waterfalls. It really feels like you're under like pounds and pounds of rock and sand, and that all of these places could be lost in a second if all of that came crashing down. It makes everything feel very distant and old and far away in a really almost haunting and eerie way, and it's one of the reasons that I love the desert so much. But one of the places I didn't mention last video in the desert that a lot of y'all had really nice things to say about was the Vorukasha Oasis. And I totally understand, especially after we save this place, quote unquote, and we have this sort of overworld transformation that is typical of a lot of Genshin World quests. This place is so pretty, and there really isn't anywhere like it in the game. I know at the beginning of this video I talked about the tree at Windrise, and how at the time it was pretty much the biggest singular object in the game. Well, now look at this tree. I think that's a pretty good representation of just how far this game has come, and just how much bigger and more grandiose it has gotten in the meantime. Now, Natlan is coming in just a few months, and with that we're going to be leaving Fontaine behind. And while it's definitely too early for Fontaine to be on this list of nostalgic places in Genshin, I do think that this view, our very first view of Fontaine for many of us, is going to be on a nostalgia list in the future, and it'll be really fun to come back and maybe do a follow-up to this video where I include this location and come back to it and really feel the nostalgia. Because as of right now, since we're still in the 4.x cycle, it's not very nostalgic. It feels like just yesterday that I was here. But I'm sure that after exploring all of Natlan, I'm going to feel very, very differently about this gorgeous and imposing view of Fontaine that we were initially treated to. With that in mind, thank you all so much for watching this video. Thank you all so much for giving so much support to that last video and so many kind words in the comments. Truly, like, you guys were so nice to me in those comments saying how much you liked the video and how you wanted more of it. And I'm super happy to give more because I loved making that video and I love going back to old Genshin places like this. So I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this one. Now, the thing with that video getting so much attention is that it also got so many comments, and I couldn't cover all of the locations in that video in just this video. So if I didn't get to one of the places that you wanted me to, go ahead and leave another comment. I'm so open to making a third one of these, and honestly, I would love to just keep making these forever, because going back to old Genshin locations, this is the excuse. This is the excuse I've made for myself to give myself a reason to go back and reminisce at all of these gorgeous older locations. So yeah, thank you so much for watching that one. Thank you so much for watching this one, and that will unfortunately be the end. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see all of y'all next time. Later!